I was Ethan's white moonlight, the woman he'd turned his back on his entire family and fortune just to marry. But when I was 6 months pregnant, he cheated. In a private booth, he held a young, beautiful girl in his arms and kissed her as the crowd around them hooped and jeered. Someone envied him, saying he'd married the campus beauty and would soon have a wife, a kid, and a warm, cozy home. He lit a cigarette, exhaling a cloud of smoke laced with mockery. Evelyn's fine, I guess, gentle, pretty. But every time I think about how I cut ties with my family and built this company from scratch just to marry her, I feel like a fucking idiot. Now that I look back, she's nothing special, timid, quiet, dead boring. With that, he kissed the girl beside him again, cupping her face with a teasing laugh. You're better. No demands for a title, no strings attached. I can do whatever I want, however I want. But he'd forgotten one thing. Evelyn might be timid and quiet, but she held grudges, every last one of them. I stood in the hallway, one hand clutching a hangover remedy I'd picked up from the pharmacy on the way, the other holding a dripping umbrella. My phone still held the message Ethan had sent an hour earlier. Baby, I'm so drunk. Come pick me up and take me home. Yeah, same familiar tone, soft and coaxing, like he was pouting. The dim yellow light bled into the hallway, painting the air with a faint, hazy warmth. This was an exclusive private club, one Ethan had only earned the right to enter again after striking out on his own from the family and finding success. Privacy was guaranteed, to say the least. Maybe it was the poor lighting, but I tripped hard over the edge of the carpet divide. I stumbled forward several steps before catching myself, clutching my swollen belly. My heart hammered wildly in my chest. Then the ring on my left ring finger slipped loose. A sharp, stinging pain pricked my heart. My wedding band had fallen off. 3 years of marriage, and I'd never once taken off that ring, one Ethan had designed and forged with his own 2 hands. Countless nights in bed, he'd held me close and kissed my fingers over and over. So beautiful. Every part of you is beautiful, Evie. Only you deserve a ring I made myself. And now it had fallen off. Just like that. No warning, no fanfare. Like a dead leaf from an autumn tree, falling when its time had come. I knelt down, searching frantically. The dim light cast everything in shadow. All I could see was the long, plush carpet stretching out before me. The booth door was ajar, and voices of young men and women drifted out. They were playing Truth or Dare. Someone had lost, and the crowd was egging them on to drink. Ethan, I can't drink anymore. Help me. Just this once, and I'll make it worth your while tonight. I promise. The girl's voice was like honey sweet, cloying, with a playful lilt at the end. Little liar, you said that last night too. And who was it crying halfway through? His lazy, amused drawl was thick with fondness, the same tone he'd once used only on me. I'd always been someone who craved safety, who hated surprises. Even a sudden loud noise in an otherwise quiet room would send my heart racing. Evie, why are you so jumpy? Even a loud door close makes you flinch. Hey, it's okay. I just set a glass down too hard. That's all. He'd wrap me up in the blankets and pull me into his arms, laughing softly as he stroked my tense back. You're like a little bunny, Evie. I'll be gentle from now on, okay? I'll never let anything scare you again. And somehow, under his gentle care, I'd relaxed. Little by little, I'd given him my heart, let him step into the safe little world I'd built for myself. For years after that, whenever I looked frightened or panicked, he'd wrap me in a blanket and hold me tight, letting me feel safe again, until this moment, until that safe world crumbled to dust, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. Tears fell before I could stop them. The pain washed over me like a tide, just as fierce as it had a month ago, swallowing me whole. That's right, a month. I'd known Ethan was cheating for a whole month. It had been raining that day too. Autumn had settled over Kingston, and the weather changed by the day. I'd scheduled a prenatal checkup ahead of time, and I was waiting for Ethan to pick me up, wrapped in a thick trench coat. He was supposed to be home by 2 in the afternoon, but 3 o'clock came and went with no sign of him. As my appointment drew closer, I called him. When he answered, his voice was a little rough, but still soft and patient. I'm so sorry, baby. I got stuck in a last-minute meeting with the overseas team. Can I send my assistant to take you today? I didn't like being around strangers. even Jake. His assistant, whom I'd met many times, but he'd been so busy lately, so busy that he came home long after I'd fallen asleep. And left again before I woke up. Only the lingering warmth on his side of the bed told me he'd been there at all. The last time I'd seen him was 2 days prior. He'd looked exhausted, wrapping his arms around me and nuzzling my neck like a needy puppy. He'd said the company was about to go public, and he wouldn't have much time for me or the baby for a while. He'd begged for kisses to make up for all the time he'd spent away from me. Thinking about it, my heart softened. I'd spoken gently, telling him, "Okay, but you have to promise to rest. Your health comes first." He'd laughed then, a loud, smacking kiss sounding through the phone. "Okay, anything for my wife. I won that angel wings necklace at the charity gala last night. I'll bring it home with me tonight." Warmth flooded my cheeks. Giddy with excitement, the angel wings was a piece by my favorite artist, the only piece from his Freedom collection ever sold at auction. I'd stared at it in magazines for hours. He'd noticed, laughed, and pulled me onto his lap, telling me if I was sweet to him, he'd bring it home for me. And I had been sweet to him. 4 hours. By the end, my tongue was numb, my lips swollen, my legs too weak to stand. He'd picked me up and set me back on his lap. His voice rough. "Silly girl, no one but you deserves this necklace." But that necklace never made it around my neck. I was staring happily at my ultrasound results, looking at the baby that had already grown little arms and legs, while the man who'd claimed to be too busy to see me was in the next exam room, holding a crying girl in his arms. Ruptured corpus luteum from excessive intercourse. Nothing serious, just take it easy, keep things clean, and no sex for a while. The girl was sobbing in pain, snuggling into Ethan's chest and whining. Ethan held her hand, kissing her forehead over and over, murmuring soft comforts. He'd never had a gentle temperament. Born into wealth, he'd been raised on a pedestal. Wild and arrogant in his youth, he'd fly into a rage at the smallest slight, and never let an insult go unpunished. His dark eyes had always held nothing but pride and cruelty. Comforting someone, he could barely hold a civil conversation. Only with me had those eyes ever softened with tenderness. Now he was learning to be gentle with someone else too. I stood in the doorway, crumpling the ultrasound paper in my hand without even noticing. Ethan was right. I was timid, quiet, even catching my husband cheating. My first instinct was to hide. I didn't want to confront them. What was I thinking? Oh right, I was wondering if Ethan knew I had a checkup today. If he knew this was the private hospital I always went to, then why would he bring her here? Was he not afraid I'd see them? Or was he doing it on purpose? Did he want me to see her? To know there was someone else? So I'd step aside on my own without him having to say the words. My eyes traced over their bodies, pressed so close together. Then they landed on the girl's neck. It was the necklace I'd stared at 100 times in magazines. So he'd given it to her too. I don't remember how I got home that day. I just remember walking in the rain, my phone ringing again and again in my pocket. I didn't answer until I was inside the house. Ethan sounded frantic. "Baby, where did you go? Jake said he couldn't find you when he got there. Tell me where you are. I'll come get you right now." I told him flatly, calmly. "I'm home." He rambled on about something else, but my ears were ringing. I couldn't hear a word. When he hung up, I went to the bedroom to change. Only then did I realize how cold I was, even with the heat cranked to 30 degrees, even curled up on the couch wrapped in a blanket. I couldn't stop shivering. I could hear my own teeth chattering. Minutes ticked by, then hours. Night fell, and the house stayed silent. The front door never opened. Then I snapped. I flipped the coffee table over in a frenzy. Glass vases and water-dusted roses shattered across the floor. Timid, quiet me, even my anger only dared to come out when I was sure the person who'd wronged me wasn't coming home. I smashed everything I could reach in the living room, until I collapsed on the floor, exhausted. That's when I realized I wasn't cold. My heart was crying, screaming, raw and broken, dizzy. I couldn't understand what I'd done wrong, why the man who'd loved me so much would cheat on me while I was carrying his child, dealing me this final blow. For a month after that, I drowned in endless self-doubt. I fixated on my softening stomach, on how tired and plain my face looked from the pregnancy. I'd convinced myself I was the worst, most worthless person in the world. Even so, I'd hidden it all, tried to pretend nothing had happened. I didn't dare bring it out into the open. I'd lost my family when I was 17, for 8 years after that. Ethan had taken their place. He was all I had. I was terrified of losing him too, but no matter how hard I tried to look away, I couldn't help but notice the signs. I always knew when he'd been with her. The cloying sweet perfume on his clothes when he hugged me, the occasional lipstick stain on his white shirts in the laundry, the brown curl on the passenger seat that wasn't mine, all that self-doubt. All those little details I'd ignored before they piled up like mountains, chipping away at my sanity until I was breaking apart. I kept my face calm, but inside me raged a tsunami, slamming into my heart again and again, until my heart, like an old wall, cracked piece by piece, crumbled away, and revealed the rotten, festering mess underneath. Standing there outside that booth, I felt the fog that had clouded my head for a month finally lift. The noise inside went on, but I no longer had any desire to go in. Ethan's living the dream. Man, hot wife, baby on the way, and a gorgeous mistress on the side. Hey, I heard your wife was the campus beauty back in the day. Total ice queen. She went to the same school as your new girl, right? A bright, girlish voice piped up. Really, Ethan, your wife was my senior. You said she had it so rough, parents died young. Her mom was pregnant when she passed. Her stepdad was abusive. I thought she'd be some frumpy old housewife. She whined, playful and petulant. You should have told me she was pretty. Last night in bed I asked you who was better looking, me or her. How embarrassing. Come on, kid. You don't go for ugly mistresses. What would be the point, right? And just because her family was rough doesn't mean she's not hot. Look at Ethan, of course his wife's beautiful. It's obvious. The teasing made the girl burst into tears. Ethan laughed and stepped in to smooth things over. Hey, lay off her, will you? She's young, sweet and innocent. Don't pick on her. As for Evelyn. His tone shifted, warm amusement fading into something unreadable. She's fine, I guess. Gentle, pretty. But every time I think about how I cut ties with my family and built this company from nothing just to marry her, I feel like a fucking idiot. Now that I look back, she's nothing special. All that ice queen crap. She's just shy, bad with people, boring as hell. Why did I ever think I couldn't live without her? The last line drifted up. Like even he couldn't believe it himself. I felt cold all over. The nightmares of my past told her all about them. Told his mistress. Told all his friends. Laid out my life. My pain. My scars for them to pick apart. Turned my suffering into their entertainment. And the answer I'd spent a month searching for, why he'd cheated, was right there. Falling from his own mouth. It made all the torture I'd put myself through that month feel like a joke. Ethan's father had cheated on his mother while she was pregnant too, by the time she found out. The other woman's son was almost 10, same age as Ethan. After that, his mother's mind had never been quite right. She suffered for years, until one day she jumped off the roof, and not long after she died, his father brought his mistress and the illegitimate son into the house. After that, Ethan moved out and never went back. He was 17 then, living next door to me. The change had made him violent, always getting into fights. I only knew the boy next door was around my age, and just as alone as I was, so I'd leave bottles of bruise cream on his doorstep. Now and then, it wasn't until we got together that I learned about his family, and how different our worlds were. His father had never disowned him. Not really, maybe out of some tiny guilt over Ethan's mother. He'd poured every resource the family had into Ethan. I'd tried to stay away from him because of it, but Ethan had found me, held me tight, and sobbed, Evie, I can lose everything, but not you. Don't leave me, I'll die. You're the only thing that matters to me in this whole world. In the end, my heart had softened. I'd gone home with him, and met the man who'd cheated on his wife and driven her to her death. He'd looked down at us from his pedestal. Ethan, if you marry this girl, I will take away every privilege you have as a member of this family. I'll never forget the pity in his eyes when he looked at me. And the scorn when he spoke to Ethan. He said, Are you sure? When you lose the family name and all that comes with it, when you're scraping by month to month, can't even afford a button on the suit you wear now, while your brother inherits everything, surrounded by people kissing his feet. Are you sure you won't hate her for it? Won't resent her? Ethan had just pulled me toward the door, stubborn as ever, and thrown back one line, then take it all. The signs had been there all along. I'd caught him staring at photos of his illegitimate brother Lucas in the society pages. All sharp suits and polished smiles. I'd seen him push my hand away when I tried to wipe his face during the worst days of his startup, drunk and bitter, muttering, "Why does he get everything? He's just a bastard." His mom was a homewrecker. They all forget who they used to kiss up to. All those little pieces fit together now, forming a clear picture of the truth. Ethan hated me. It was laughable. What right did Ethan have to hate me? He made his own choice. Why blame me for his regrets? Coward. Hey, Ethan, your wife's pretty far along. You sure she won't find out about this? After that, the room went quiet for a beat. Then came the sound of glass shattering, and Ethan's cold, sharp warning. So all of you shut your fucking mouths about it. Got it. She's almost due. Nothing can go wrong right now. But from the crack in the door, I could see him toss the broken glass into the corner, tilting his head back. The sharp line of his jaw was impossible to read. Like the warning had never left his mouth. I watched his Adam's apple bob as he spoke. She's 6 months pregnant, big as she is. And she's got no one but me. Even if she finds out, what's she gonna do about it? I stared at the man I'd once loved so deeply, and my body began to shake. By the end, I was leaning against the wall just to stay upright. Memories flashed through my head, one after another. They settled on a thundering, rainy day, thick with the smell of blood, a drunk, raging man, a little girl, crying non-stop, and a pregnant woman, holding the girl tight. Evie, run. The woman's eyes were dark, bloodshot, like they might start bleeding any second. Her hair was a mess, her voice ragged, like she was choking on phlegm. Behind her, the man kicked and punched her again and again. His voice cut through the years, landing in my ears like it was coming straight from hell. You're pregnant. I knocked you up good. What are you gonna do? What can you do? You think you can run? You'll never get away from me. Not in this life. That was my past. The past I'd spent my whole life running from. Now it pinned me to the wall like 1,000 knives, forcing me to watch it all happen again. No escape. No, I won't let this happen. After a long time, the noise inside picked up again. Ethan kissed the girl's waist as the crowd hooped, and I finally felt strength seep back into my limbs. I laughed, quiet and bitter. What I'd thought was salvation had just been another trap. I turned around and walked back down the dim hallway the way I'd come. My steps were heavy at first, then lighter. By the end, I was holding my belly and running, until I stepped back into the bright streetlights. Ethan was right. I was timid, quiet, but I also held grudges. When I'd given him my softest self and he'd turned around and stabbed me with it, he should have known I'd never forgive him. A ping. It was Ethan. Baby, tomorrow's our 3rd wedding anniversary. I've got a surprise for you. Love you always. Your husband. I deleted the text without a flicker of emotion, hailed a taxi, and left without looking back. I slept better that night than I had in a whole month. When Ethan came home, I was on the balcony trimming flowers. Mrs. Hale, our housekeeper, had just come back from her trip to the countryside. She was wiping water off the planters next to me, telling me stories about her time away. I laughed out loud, and Mrs. Hale smiled too, relieved. It's so good to hear you laugh, ma'am. Oh, look, Mr. Voss is home. He'd never miss your anniversary, no matter how busy he is. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the man standing in the garden below, holding a bouquet of flowers. He was frowning, checking his reflection in the car mirror. The roses in his arms were bright and dewy, fresh as could be. After all these years, he still wants to look his best for you. Look. He's even spraying on cologne. That man loves you so much. I scoffed. It wasn't love. It was just a man who'd had his fun, doing one last check to make sure his wife didn't catch on. What are you two talking about? Sounds like you're having fun. Ethan came up fast. After a wild night, he'd fixed himself up perfectly, looking bright and put together. He was wearing the black tailored suit I'd bought him. It broadened his shoulders, cinched his waist, made his legs look long. The muscle of his arms strained faintly against the fabric. Nothing much, Just saying what a lovely couple you two make. I'll go get lunch started. Sir. Mrs. Hale smiled and left, giving us some privacy. Ethan raised an eyebrow, grinning as he set the flowers down and came over to hug me. Mrs. Hale's the best, always around to witness how much I love my wife. I lifted a hand to stop him. Even his heavy cologne couldn't mask that cloying, sweet girl's perfume that made my stomach turn. Did you sleep at the office again last night? I turned and looked him right in the eye. Yeah, I was working until 2 in the morning, so I crashed there. I missed you so much. Baby, I can't sleep without holding you. He laced our fingers together and nuzzled my hand. Voice soft and pitiful, no trace of guilt. I laughed a little. Is that so? It rained last night. I brought you an umbrella to the office. The staff said you'd left hours ago. Ethan froze. I pulled my hand away gently and sat down on the couch, not looking at his face. In an instant he was beside me, wrapping his arms around me tight, his voice careful. Nervous. I'm so sorry, baby. The CEO from Sterling Group called. There was a problem with the contract. I had to go to a dinner thing. Drank way too much. Passed out at a hotel. I didn't mean to lie to you. I just didn't want you to worry. Not with the baby. His voice trailed off, and that familiar, kicked puppy look crossed his face, like he was some poor, hard-working husband just trying to provide for his family. And his wife wouldn't even believe him. I struggled a little, but couldn't get free. That peach perfume you're wearing is making me nauseous. Ethan, you know I hate peaches. At that, Ethan went completely still. The ache in my chest faded into numbness. Good. I could face him now and feel nothing. The rest of the day, Ethan stuck to my side like glue. He showered and changed, then smiled and told me. It must have been one of the female assistants at the Sterling Group dinner, brushed up against me by accident. Not a single flicker of panic at almost being caught. I'd never known he was such a good actor. I smiled and nodded. Letting it drop, Ethan sent the housekeepers home for the day. Said he wanted it to be just the two of us for our anniversary. He fussed over me so much he sent them all home before they'd even made dinner. I watched his back as he cooked in the kitchen. And for a second I was transported back to the first year of our marriage. Back then I'd had trouble sleeping, was thin and strung out. He'd cook for me himself every day, no matter how busy he was. If it weren't for his phone buzzing non-stop. He frowned and hung up on yet another call. And 2 of the chicken wings in the pan burned because he wasn't paying attention. My phone buzzed too, right on cue. A few photos, and a file folder. The photos were taken in Ethan's office. The girl was bent over his desk, her tight skirt hitched up high. The man had only unzipped his pants, their bodies pressed together, his restraint and her pleasure tangled in one frame. I felt sick, pressing a hand to my chest. And then realized I felt nothing at all. That was progress. Useless old hag. You and your baby can just die. I can have his baby too. I just found out I'm pregnant. Think he'll still want you when he finds out. The text came with an ultrasound photo. He's sick of you. He told me if it weren't for you, he never would have suffered all those years. He's only staying with you for the baby. Out of duty. Just let him go. I ignored her. It made sense now. She'd been the one to use Ethan's phone to lure me there last night. The girl's agenda was obvious. Such a Shemesh gotten into a good university, had a bright future ahead of her. And she'd chosen this path instead. I saved the photos. Then opened the file sent from an overseas account. It was all the girl's information. Mia Bennett, 20 years old, pretty and fresh-faced, with a rough home life, a grandmother who favored boys, a dead mother, a cruel stepmother, an abusive father. Ethan had saved her. 2 years ago, right around his company's IPO, he'd gone to handle a charity supply drop that had gone wrong. He'd found her fresh out of high school, about to be sold by her father to a widowed old man in a rural town. Ethan had shown up like a god in her life, brought her to Kingston, pulled her out of the mud, paid for her schooling. It was only natural that she'd fall for the man who'd saved her. She looks just like you. The overseas account messaged again. I scoffed, typing back, even in the mood to joke. I never was a homewrecker. She must have been speechless, because it took her a while to reply. Does he have some kind of savior complex? Why does he keep pulling this rescue the poor girl crap? Maybe. The messages kept coming through dinner. her tone growing angrier by the second. Want me to mess with her? I hacked into his laptop. There's all kinds of stuff on there. I could post it all over her school's website. Nah, the problem's the man who went out and ate shit, not the shit itself. Right. Who are you texting? You look amused. Ethan set the dishes down on the table. He knew I had a strange friend, one who never showed her face, who came and went as she pleased. I smiled and stood up. Walking over to the table, just a story about rescuing damsels in distress. Ethan pulled out my chair and helped me sit down carefully. Stories are boring. You haven't had my cooking in forever, baby. He kissed my forehead as I sat, thinking about that photo Mia had sent. I felt a wave of nausea. My mood soured instantly. The words slipped out before I could stop them. True stories are the best kind. A man meets the love of his life at a club, marries her. Then years later, picks up his mistress at that same club. You think he has some kind of savior fetish. Needs to save every poor girl he meets. Ethan's hand jerked. The soup bowl he was filling tilted, and hot soup spilled all over his hand. I watched coldly as he rushed to the kitchen to run it under cold water. When he came back, there was a blister already forming on the back of his hand. I set my phone face down on the table. He stood there frozen for a long time. Lost. Then he said, "Baby, did you hear some kind of rumor?" I shook my head, smiling again. "Let's eat." My phone was still open to Mia's text. "Bet he won't even make it through your whole anniversary with you." In the end, Mia didn't manage to lure Ethan away. When he tried to make an excuse about work to leave, I just tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I watched the panic flash in his eyes when he saw my bare ring finger, and felt a flicker of satisfaction. Mia was trying to provoke me, even though I knew the real problem was Ethan. I wasn't about to let her win, even if it was just to annoy her. But even though Ethan stayed home, I couldn't shake how disgusting it all felt. I hated that I was playing games, fighting with another woman for a man's attention, like some character in a period drama. That night, he held me and talked for hours, talked about how we used to be. He held me tight all through the night, even when we slept. When his throat went dry, he finally asked, quiet and tentative, "Evie, what happened to that ring I made you? The one I carved. I lost it somewhere. Don't remember." There was a long silence behind me. Then Ethan spoke again. "It's okay, if it's lost. I'll make you a new one." Something cold settled around my neck. I looked down. The diamond wings of the necklace pendant glinted in the dark. Ethan turned me over to face him, his eyes soft with what he probably thought was love. "Happy 3rd anniversary. Evie, the necklace you wanted. I brought it home for you." It was the same angel wings necklace Mia had worn. I closed my eyes and hummed, then rolled over, turning my back to him, pretending to be asleep. Maybe the anniversary had been too eventful. Ethan didn't say anything else. He just pulled me tight against his chest from behind. Half asleep, I thought I heard him murmur, "Be good. Evie, stay with me forever. Never leave me." But his forever only lasted a few hours. I woke up when he got out of bed in the middle of the night, quiet as a shadow. I kept my eyes closed, listening as he fumbled for his clothes in the dark. Then slipped out the door. Mia was waiting for him downstairs, had been for a while. She threw herself into his arms the second he stepped outside. I watched for a minute, then ripped the necklace off my neck and threw it in the trash. I went to sleep in the guest room down the hall. Dirty. It was all so dirty. The second he left, I couldn't stand to pretend for another second. I got Ethan's text the next morning. He said he had to go on a business trip. His tone careful, almost sheepish. "I'm so sorry, baby. This trip came up last minute. It's urgent. When I get back, I'll stay home with you the whole time. Help you get ready for the baby. No more work. Just us. Wait for me." Okay. Work comes first. Don't worry about anything else. When you get back, I've got a big surprise for you. That's what I texted back. My phone held a photo of him and Mia boarding a plane, hand in hand. He was tall and broad. She was small and delicate. They looked like the perfect, loving couple. I locked my phone and took out all the photos we'd taken together over the years, feeding them one by one into the paper shredder. Then I called the people I'd hired and had them tear apart every part of the house that held our memories. the ceramic mugs we'd made together at the pottery shop, the trophy we'd won for a school project, the handcrafted rocking chair I'd begged him to build for me, including the nursery we'd finished decorating. We cowl. DVE found out if it was a boy or a girl, but Ethan hadn't wanted to. Said he wanted to wait 10 months and see for himself. So we decorated 2 nurseries, pink for a girl, blue for a boy. Now they were turning to rubble right in front of me, along with every hope I'd had for this baby. I told the housekeeper not to come in for a while, then left the house. In the car on the way to the airport, the overseas account messaged me again. You sure about this? Yes, I'm coming home to be with you. 5 simple words, and all the hurt I'd bottled up these past weeks came flooding out. Tears streamed down my face. Okay. That night, Ethan stood by the window smoking. A nurse poked her head into the hospital room. Sir, there's no smoking in the ward. Ethan nodded, pinching the cigarette out between his fingers. How is she? She's fine. Surgery's scheduled for tomorrow. It's a minor procedure. Just no sex. Avoid cold drafts. And take it easy while she recovers. She's young. She'll bounce back fast. The nurse left after that. Mia's eyes were red, her face pale. She called out to him. Ethan. She'd forgotten how smug she'd been when she sent that ultrasound to Evelyn. Now she just wanted to ask if she could keep the baby. She wanted to tell him she wasn't with him for the money, but he cut her off before she could speak. I'll transfer you a sum of money, enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. Don't contact me again. Ethan's voice was cold, nothing like the soft affection he'd shown her before. When she tried to argue, he leaned down and grabbed her face, his fingers digging in so hard they left bruises. I told you the rules from the start, Mia. Be good, and you can stay in Kingston. If not. He scoffed. The threat hung in the air. Unspoken. Mia trembled. She suddenly remembered how ruthless Ethan could be. All the sweet attention these past months had made her forget. Made her forget she was just a pet he kept around. That his heart belonged to the woman named Evelyn. All right, you stay here for the surgery. I'll have Jake handle everything after. Ethan stood up to leave. Mia sat there stunned, then suddenly remembered all the messages she'd sent to Evelyn. If Ethan found out. She reached out and grabbed his sleeve. Ethan. Just a few more days. Stay with me. It's our baby. Let's say goodbye together. Okay. Mia looked up at him, tears streaming down her pretty, pitiful face. She thought if she could just keep him here for a few more days, then she'd have the abortion, get better, take the money, and leave town for good. Disappear. That way, even if Ethan found out she'd gone behind his back and told his wife, he'd never find her. Ethan looked down at her. From this angle, Mia looked just like Evelyn had back then. 17-year-old Evelyn had been so beautiful. The kind of pretty that took your breath away. But she'd been so fragile, so sensitive, the kind of girl that made men want to do bad things to her. So the spoiled, arrogant young heir had noticed her. For the first time in his life, he'd known about her family situation the day he'd moved in. They were infamous in the building. Even the neighbor's dog would cross the street to avoid their apartment. It was her stepfather. Violent. Mean. A mean drunk who beat her mother and her every time he drank. Every few days, the sounds of screaming would echo out of their apartment. The police and social services had come by a few times, but eventually they'd stopped coming. But even through all that, Evelyn would sneak downstairs to feed the stray cats. She'd leave medicine for him when he came home beaten up from fights. Such a kind girl. Almost too kind. He'd always believed in paying his debts. People who crossed him, he made them regret it. People who helped him, he paid them back tenfold. So when the screaming started again one night, he'd kicked their door down and stormed inside. What he saw was worse than any neighbor's story. He'd never seen Evelyn's mother before that night. She was thin, covered in bruises, but strikingly beautiful. Evelyn looked just like her. She was on the floor, pregnant belly sticking out, taking blow after blow from the man. Evelyn was clinging to his leg, trying to pull him back, until he kicked her across the room. The man was screaming, "You think you can run off and find another man? You bitch. I'll kill you first. Then I'll kill your little whore daughter." Even after all the terrible things he'd seen, the young heir had never felt that kind of rage. He'd roared and thrown himself at the man, beating him within an inch of his life. In the end, the man had 3 broken ribs and a fractured leg. His father had paid off the police to make it all go away. The man was terrified. For a long time after that, life got better for Evelyn and her mother. She smiled more, seeing her smile. Ethan had felt his heart skip a beat for the first time in his life. After that, Evelyn's mother, who almost never left the house, would step outside, and when she saw him with Evelyn, she'd invite him in for dinner. Then one night, the screaming started again. He'd run out of his apartment barefoot. This time was worse. Crushed peaches were scattered across the floor. Just like the happy summer Evelyn had finally gotten to have. Evelyn's mother and stepfather lay in pools of blood a few feet away. Evelyn huddled in the corner, shaking, holding a peach in her hand. She looked like a dandelion in the wind, like she might blow away any second. It was the first time the wild, untamed young heir had ever felt fear. He'd crossed the room shaking, and pulled her into his arms. He'd spoken to her in a voice softer than he'd ever used, over and over, until she finally broke down sobbing. If he'd first noticed her for her beauty, then somewhere along the way, he'd fallen truly, deeply in love with this girl who'd had such a hard life. As for Mia, the first time he'd seen her, she was barely a teenager, tied up like an animal, being dragged toward a limping, sleazy old man. The girl's eyes were dark, empty. In that instant, he'd thought of Evelyn, huddled in that corner all those years ago, 2 pure, delicate flowers growing up out of the mud. In that moment, he'd felt pity, just pity, because his heart was already all Evelyn's. Thinking about it, his expression softened. He said quietly, "Okay." For the next few days, Ethan treated Mia just like he always had. Just a few more days, he told himself. Give the girl who cared about him one last bit of kindness. But no matter what he did, he couldn't stop thinking about Evelyn. Her, crying in that tiny, dark apartment. Her, quiet and steady, leaving him medicine and bandaging his wounds. Her, trembling and shy even when she was with him, letting him have her because she trusted him. He missed her, especially when he saw Mia being wheeled out of the operating room. The longing hit him like a wave. Mia was pale, small, swallowed up by her hospital gown, like a flower that had wilted. Ethan couldn't help but wonder, would Evelyn be in this much pain when she had the baby? It was okay, he told himself. He'd be right there with her, hold her, comfort her, get her the best team of doctors and nannies money could buy. They'd only have this one baby. He decided he'd never let Evelyn go through this pain again. But their last text exchange was still on his phone, him saying he had to go on a trip, her telling him work came first. He'd been swamped with work and Mia's abortion these past few days. No time to call her, and she hadn't reached out once. Ethan suddenly remembered how strange Evelyn had acted on their anniversary. Like she knew something. Panic coiled in his chest. He texted her immediately, so focused he didn't even hear Mia calling his name. The typing indicator popped up, and popped up, and popped up. Finally, a reply came. "The baby and I are fine. Enjoy your trip." His heart settled. He turned to Mia. "What did you say?" Mia sniffled, eyes red. She pressed her cheek to his palm. "Ethan, just a few more days. Stay with me, please." Ethan didn't say anything. He just set his phone down. The day Mia was discharged, Ethan had Jake book them flights back to Kingston immediately. Before boarding, he called Evelyn. Her voice was still soft, still gentle. She said she'd meet him at the airport. He smiled, warm and happy. "Stay home, baby. You're 6 months along. Don't go running around. I brought you a present." Right before he hung up, something made him say her name. "Evie." A soft hum from the other end. "I love you." These past few years had been so hard, leaving the family, building his company from nothing, fighting his way back to the top of Kingston society. He'd suffered so much. So many people called him an idiot, said he'd thrown away his birthright for a woman, compared him to Lucas, his illegitimate brother, who'd inherited everything. He was Ethan Voss. He'd been the heir, the golden boy, everyone's favorite. And now people were trampling all over his pride, just to kiss up to that bastard brother of his. All those rich brats he'd looked down on before, they'd team up to ruin his deals, just to get on Lucas's good side. So he'd been angry, unfairly. He'd blamed Evelyn, even hated her. A little. Hated that she'd made him throw everything away like a fool. So much time had passed. He couldn't even remember the last time he'd said those 3 words and meant them. Saying them now, his heart raced like he was a stupid kid again. He waited, desperate, for her to say it back. Seconds ticked by. Minutes. His racing heart slowed. The smile faded from his face. Finally, another soft hum from the other end. The call ended. The warmth faded. His smile felt stiff, frozen on his face. But it was okay. The only thing he'd ever done wrong by Evelyn was Mia. When he got back, he'd erase every trace of her. Evelyn would never know. They'd be happy again, just like before. Soon they'd have their baby. He pictured it all, soft and perfect. And his face gentled. When he landed, it was raining in Kingston. The air felt heavy, like something important was about to slip out of his life forever. Ethan got in the car and pressed his foot to the gas. Driving faster and faster. Faster, just a little faster. Drop Mia off at her dorm, then go home to Evelyn. What was she doing right now? Reading quietly on the couch, trimming her precious flowers on the balcony, or pacing by the door, holding her belly, waiting for him to crash. The accident happened so fast. He instinctively twisted sideways, shielding Mia with his body. She'd just lost their baby. If the crash was bad, she could get killed. Rain. Plus his own distracted mind rear-ended the car in front of him. The front of his car crumpled hard into the back of the other one. Ethan knew it was his fault, but he was Ethan Voss. He never admitted he was wrong. Once he confirmed Mia was okay, he called Jake, told him to handle it the way he always did. Make the poor schmuck who'd gotten hit regret ever being on the road. He hung up and got out of the car, face cold. Mia grabbed his arm, scared, and followed him out. The rain was coming down harder. Ethan took off his jacket and draped it over Mia's head. Pulling her close, he started walking toward the other car to see who was inside. He'd barely taken 2 steps when he saw something that would be burned into his soul for the rest of his life. The woman pushed open her car door and fell to the ground. Her swollen belly jolted with the pain of the cut on her forehead. Then she lifted her head. She looked at him and Mia, her eyes flat, empty. The face he'd missed so much was right there in front of him. In that second, all the blood drained from his body. Terror made his lips twitch, but he couldn't make a sound. When I woke up in the hospital, the cut on my forehead was already bandaged. It wasn't a bad injury, really. It just looked worse than it was. The nurse came in to give me instructions, then stopped when someone called her from outside. Ethan was waiting in the hallway. His voice was low, asking how I was. Too scared to come in and see for himself, I stroked my belly gently, soft and calm, and called out, "Ethan." The questioning stopped. A long moment later, the door opened. Ethan's suit was crumpled, the same one he'd draped over Mia in the rain. He hadn't changed. He forced a soft, wobbly smile. "Evie, it's not what you think. She and I come say goodbye to our baby." I cut him off gently, smiling up at him through the sunlight streaming through the window. All the panic on Ethan's face melted into soft, helpless relief. He walked toward me like he was in a daze. I studied him. Finally, I saw the guilt on his face. Guilt for cheating on his pregnant wife. I almost laughed. And I did laugh, quiet and sharp. Ethan blinked, then reached out a shaking hand to touch my belly. His voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Evie. You scared me so bad yesterday. I told you to wait for me at home. I didn't." He couldn't finish. He pressed his forehead to my belly. "If something happened to you, I don't know what I'd do." The room went quiet, warm and soft, like nothing was wrong. We stayed like that for a long time. You could hear a drop of water fall in the bathroom. I ran my fingers through his hair, slow and gentle, like I was calming a rabid dog. Back when he was always getting into fights, I'd done the same thing, stroked his hair, his back, to calm him down, but I'd seen him bury his face in another woman's chest. A dog that turns on its owner is a disgusting, slimy thing. My hand felt dirty just from touching him, so I pushed him away, hard and sudden. He stared at me, confused, as I smiled and spoke each word slow and clear. "Say goodbye to the baby, Ethan, for the last time. Tell it not to come back as the child of a piece of shit like you in its next life." Ethan lost it. The two big men I'd hired pinned him to the floor as he screamed and thrashed. He almost broke free. More than once. Thank God I'd planned ahead. I'd paid them to wait outside the second the labor pains started. He watched me, his eyes going from shock to agony to utter despair. Evie, you're joking, right? Tell me you're joking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was only a few months with Mia. I never loved her. I love you. Only you. Please. I'm begging you. That's our baby, Evie. We're all each other has left. That's our baby. You can't do this. Please don't. No. Ethan's eyes were bloodshot. Wild. He screamed so hard his voice broke, making sounds that barely sounded human. That's right. I'd chosen to terminate the pregnancy, induce labor, and lose the baby. And I was doing it right in front of him. I could feel the baby kicking hard inside me as the medication kicked in, fighting for its life. My stomach cramping, my heart aching. I climbed out of bed shaking. I walked over to him. Slow and steady, the calm shattered. I grabbed him by the collar. No, I can do this, Ethan, because pieces of shit like you and your father don't deserve to have children. Evelyn, he screamed from where he was pinned to the floor. Raw and furious. In 7 years of knowing each other, 3 years of marriage, he'd never raised his voice at me, but now his hatred was plain to see, right there on his face. Knowing he hated me was one thing, seeing it was another. For a second, I felt the absurdity of it all. That baby is yours too. I made a mistake, but what did it ever do to you? Why does it have to die for what I did? How can you be so cruel? You forgot your own mother. She died protecting you. You're a mother now, Evelyn, he rambled, desperate. Trying to hurt me with the one thing he knew would cut deepest. But I didn't care, because I knew, if my mother could see me now, she'd be happy, relieved that I hadn't made the same mistake she had. Her last word to me had been run, and now, finally, I'd run free of all of it. So I smiled. Sharp and mocking, I stared him down. You don't get to judge me. This is all your fault, not mine. Look at you. You're just like your father now. Another animal who cheats on his wife while she's pregnant. So cruelty really does run in the family. And you don't get to have children. I'm not your mother. Wasting away because her husband didn't love her. In that moment, everything I knew about him became a knife, twisted right into the weakest part of him. The room was silent except for his ragged, gasping breaths and his bloodshot eyes. My forehead throbbed. My whole body ached. But I kept my face calm and cold. A nurse rushed in to check on me, worried, and helped me stand. Did I win? No, not really. In this game, we both lost. Ethan was pinned to the floor on his knees by the two men. I turned my head away, not looking at him anymore. He deserved to kneel there, to say goodbye to this baby. The pain got worse and worse. It felt like my lower body was being torn apart. Induction meant giving birth to a baby that was already gone. The nurse walked me up and down the bathroom, rubbing my back, telling me how to breathe. Ethan knelt right outside the bathroom door. His eyes were bulging, fixed on my belly. Tears streamed down his face. Unstoppable. I'd never known he cared about the baby this much. It felt like 1,000 dull knives twisting inside me. I was soaked through with sweat. But looking at Ethan like this, I felt a strange, dark thrill. It made my skin crawl. Halfway through, the doctor came in to check on me and gave me something for the pain. My mouth was full of the taste of blood from biting down so hard. But I still spoke, every word clear. Ethan, when you were cheating on me, did you ever stop to think I was pregnant? That there was a baby in there? Remember this. That baby died because you cheated. While it was still alive and breathing, you killed it. Blood ran down my legs, pooling on the floor. Finally, with a soft, wet sound, the baby was delivered into the medical basin they'd set out. Ethan's eyes followed every movement. His face went from despair to blankness. A gurgling, animal sound came from his throat. Slowly, I bent down. I picked up the baby already fully formed, with little arms and legs from the basin, and pressed it into Ethan's arms. Look at it, Ethan. Look at the baby that died because of your mistake. So you don't forget it when you're dreaming at night. Ethan ran. He scrambled out of the room, tripping over his own feet on the way out, crawling, almost, watching his back. I tilted my head back and breathed in deep. I knew I had severe mental health issues. I'd been in treatment for a long time, but then I'd gotten pregnant, and strangely, this little thing growing inside me had felt like magic. It had healed me, little by little. I hadn't had an episode in so long. I'd stopped taking my meds, stopped going to therapy. A week before, I'd walked back into my therapist's office, not for a session, to tell her about that terrible month. At the end, I'd asked, "Doctor, what do I do to make him regret it for the rest of his life?" My therapist hadn't answered. I hadn't waited for him to. Like Ethan said, he knew me better than anyone, and I knew him, too. After all that therapy, I'd learned exactly how to hit someone where it hurt the most. Ethan would never have another child, I thought. Not really. This was a castration of the soul. The big surprise I'd promised him. I stayed in the hospital for a week. Mia called me once. On the other end, she was nothing like the smug girl who'd taunted me. She was screaming, hysterical. "What did you do to him? Why won't he eat? Why does he have a fever? You evil bitch. You deserve to rot in hell." I just smiled and asked one question. "I heard Ethan made you get rid of your baby too." The line went dead with a loud click. On the 8th day, someone came to my room, uninvited. A woman dressed all in black. She walked in, met my eyes, then pulled off her mask and the hood of her coat. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, from years of staying out of the sun. My throat tightened, then I broke down crying. That afternoon, I checked out of the hospital. On the way to the airport, Ethan called me. I didn't answer. He called once, then never called again. While we waited for our flight, Harper pulled her hood and mask back on, tapped away at her laptop for a minute, then looked up with a smirk. Done. I sat there staring into space, not asking what she'd done. Harper was that friend of mine, the one who never showed her face. She'd had a rough life too. Same as me. The only difference was she chose to stay away from people and sunlight. While I was scared of them, she used to be a hacker. Once she'd hacked into an old, wealthy family's company system overseas and got caught. The family had bailed her out and hired her as their cybersecurity engineer. So when she said done, it was never anything good. "The divorce papers are already in the mail. Soon you'll be able to come live with me overseas. Start over." She ruffled my hair. I finally looked over at her. It wouldn't be that easy. Ethan was stubborn, vengeful. This had caught him off guard. Hee-haw. Deant had time to react, but he never let anything go. Love or hate, he'd never let me walk away that easily. So before coming to the airport, I'd gone to see someone, the new head of the Voss family, Ethan's illegitimate little brother, Lucas. I knew Ethan. His pride was everything. Even after building his own success, Lucas, his father's chosen heir, was the one thing that could make him burn with rage. He'd rather die than let Lucas step all over him. Back in the early days of his company, when he'd still loved me, he'd given me 20% of the shares. Now I'd sold all those shares to Lucas. The two brothers had been at each other's throats for years, each trying to destroy the other. Lucas wouldn't pass up an opportunity like this. If they were busy fighting each other, it would buy me time to recover and give me the money I needed to start a new life overseas. After I moved abroad, it took me a long time to heal. The 6-month termination had done a number on my body. During that time, I finally learned what Harper's done had meant. She'd hacked into Ethan's laptop, taken all the photos and videos of him and Mia, and scheduled them to be sent to every single one of his business partners and every employee at his company. She'd also sent Ethan all the taunting messages Mia had sent me. Ethan's company was already unstable after I sold my shares to Lucas. The leak made everything 100 times worse. Even then, he didn't stop trying to reach me. No matter how hard Harper blocked him, a few messages always found their way to my phone. "Evie, where are you? I won't sign the divorce. I'm sorry. Can we just go back to the way things were? Evie, I love you. I'm never letting go. I'll find you. Evie, I know where you are. As soon as I fix things here, I'm coming to get you, bringing you home. Evie, I found out what Mia did. I sent her away. Nothing's standing between us anymore." Attached was a photo. Mia was crying, her hands tied. The men standing around her I recognized from the files Harper had sent me. Her grandmother, her father, her stepmother, and that widowed old man she'd almost been married to. All those years ago. My hands shook as I read the messages. Harper took the phone out of my hand, wiping the sweat off my forehead with a towel. I'd been having cold sweats ever since the termination. Always cold. Now my blood ran cold all the way through. She helped me up. I made soup. Come on, let's eat. I nodded. Dull and tired. She scoffed. He's still got time to chase you around. Clearly things aren't bad enough for him yet. She walked back to her room, grabbed her laptop, and sat down at the table. You eat first. I'm gonna give him something else to worry about. I reached out and stopped her before she could. I shook my head. Don't. He's already finished. Lucas won't let him climb back up. It wasn't worth her risking herself again. Soon after, things took another turn. Mia escaped. She posted online, saying Ethan had lied to her, manipulated her, that she'd had no idea he was married. Ethan hit back, posting all the chat logs Harper had sent him, proving she'd known all along. The two of them turned on each other. People who betray others always get betrayed in the end. When I felt a little better, I asked Harper to make me an itinerary. I wanted to travel. I was in my 20s. And I'd never gotten to just go somewhere, just for myself. Sooner or later, I'd have to learn to be alone. Knowing how I felt, Harper planned a long route for me, all over the world, long enough that she'd warn me Ethan was chasing me. But he never once caught up. While he was distracted chasing me, his company was completely swallowed up by Lucas. Harper sent me a photo of him passed out drunk on the street. Broken, defeated. That was enough. It was snowing the day I flew back to Kingston. The cold wind hit me the second I stepped off the plane. It felt like a lifetime had passed. I'd left broken, in pain. A few short months later, I was a different person, no longer shy, no longer flinching away from people. I saw Ethan again when I asked him to meet me to talk about the divorce. He'd lost so much weight. His hair wasn't perfectly styled like it used to be. From the second he saw me, his eyes never left me. So much had happened these past few months. We were both calm. What happened in the hospital felt like a lifetime ago. We sat down, and I slid the new divorce agreement across the table. I'd already cashed out my shares. Ethan's company was gone. There was nothing left to fight over. I was only here for the divorce. Ethan didn't look at the papers. He just stared at me, readied, raking a hand through his hair, his voice shaking. I made a mistake. The same mistake every man makes. How did we end up like? I slept with someone else. The words hung in the air. Ethan froze, like a wind-up toy that had broken mid-movement. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Despair washed over his face. Tears welled up in his red eyes, then fell, one by one, onto the table. He rarely cried. The only times I'd seen were the hospital. And now, the first time had been shock, grief, tears he couldn't control. This time, he wiped at them furiously, pressing a hand to his chest. He stumbled to his feet, reaching for my hand. It's okay. Evie, I don't care. Let's not get divorced. We can fix this. I'll change. No more other people. I'll build everything back. I'll give you the life you deserve. I pulled my hand away, gentle but firm, shattering his fantasy. You won't. Ethan, you'll never build anything back. Your fire's gone, and we'll never be together again. Not after you cheated. He collapsed back into his seat. Broken. Of course I hadn't slept with anyone else, but I knew his pride was already shattered, and I knew exactly how to hurt him. Sure enough, he didn't yell or demand or fight like he used to. He just kept talking about how good he'd been to me. About how it had only been one mistake. You know what, Ethan? It's not just men who get bored of the same old thing. Women do too. You think I never got tired of the same food every night? The same living room, never changing. I just had more self-respect than you. When I got bored of the food, I added spice. When I got bored of the decor, I moved things around. I never thought about going to someone else's house. Did you? Was it really because Mia looked like me back then? In the end, Ethan signed the divorce papers. Before he left, I said one last thing. Oh, and Ethan, you told all your friends that I was 6 months pregnant, that I had nowhere else to go, that even if I found out you cheated, there was nothing I could do about it. Now you know what I can do. I walked out of the cafe without looking back. I didn't tell him that the quiet, timid Evelyn he'd known was actually the most stubborn person alive. Just like him, she never let a wrong go unpunished. That night, all those peaches scattered on the floor. My stepfather hitting my mother. My mother hadn't been the one to hurt him badly. I'd pushed him. In a panic, he'd hit his head on the corner of the table. He'd died, and my mother still hadn't made it. And the real reason he'd attacked her hat night, it was because she'd invited Ethan over for dinner, and that arrogant boy had threatened my stepfather. Told him to leave us alone. I knew Ethan had been trying to protect us, but he'd done it right when the man was drunk. My stepfather had resented Ethan for pushing him around. That night, drunk and angry about the threat, he'd snapped. I'd tried to hate Ethan for it. Sometimes, but I knew he'd meant well, and he had helped us. He'd been there for me through the worst time of my life, but anyone could talk about my past. Not him, because I'd trusted him, loved him. At the end of the day, he'd added his own brick to the wall of my suffering. So when he'd turned my pain into entertainment for Mia and all his rich friends, he'd sealed both our fates. Ethan couldn't really remember the first few months after the divorce. He drank every day. Lost in a fog, he only remembered one night, drunk, stumbling out of a bar. He almost ran into someone. Before he could get close, the man's bodyguards tossed him aside like trash. Probably another rich little heir, he thought bitterly, back when he was the family heir. He'd traveled with an even bigger entourage. If someone had almost run into him, drunk or not, they'd have gotten a beating. So he just lay there on the ground, waiting for them to hit him. He even picked up his bottle and took another long drink. He waited and waited. But no blow came. He rubbed his forehead, about to snap. You gonna hit me or not? Hurry up. Then the man in the middle, surrounded by his people, stepped forward and stood over him. He was young. His face had the same shape as Ethan's. Ethan recognized him instantly. For a second, he couldn't breathe. Humiliation, shame, no, worse than that. In that moment, he wished he was dead. He squeezed the bottle so hard his knuckles turned white. The illegitimate brother just looked down at him, cold and dismissive, and said 4 words, pathetic, just pathetic. Then he turned and walked away, his entourage following behind. The bar manager was waiting by the door, bowing and scraping a greedy smile on his face. Ethan took another drink. Pathetic. He mouthed the word to himself. Yeah, to Lucas. He was nothing now. Lucas had everything. Everyone loved him, and he was just trash on the street. Thinking about it, his eyes burned. He pulled out his phone and dialed the number he knew by heart. She should be here with him. She'd always been there before. Someone answered on the second ring. A man's voice. For a second, Ethan's heart stopped. There was another man in Evelyn's life, which meant soon she'd move on. She'd love someone else. The voice said hello a few times, then hung up when he didn't answer. He didn't have the courage to call back. Evelyn was right. His fire had gone out that day in the hospital. There was no going back. Never. Not the status he'd once had. Not the woman he'd loved with everything he had. He dropped the bottle and Owly stood up. He stumbled away, into the shadows. Hey there, could you rate this story in the comments? Use a scale of 1 to 10. Please, I am begging you. It really means a lot to me. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit follow.